what we were talking about with regard to Brock Purdy and Trey Lance is whether or not we've reached a point where this has, in a way, become toxic. An environment that is not great for any of the 23-year-old quarterbacks. I hear a lot of people talk about, well, wait a minute. How's Trey going to grow if he doesn't get enough reps? How's Trey going to grow if all these people are saying stuff about him? Now, I'm over here, as I believe I have been the whole time, going, I don't know if Trey Lance is any good. How would I know? I've been to probably, a good handful of practices.
Yeah.
I've seen the same 4 games that all, thank you. I've seen the same 4 games that all of you have seen. My interpretation has always been based on what it looks to me like the 49ers think.
Right.
So there's a reason that they're doing what they're doing. But we have now reached a point where I think we're creating an avenue where Brock Purdy's going to be looking over his shoulder quicker than he needs to. And an environment has been created where I'm watching media members go at media members. I'm watching fans go at fans, media to fans, fans to media. The only people I trust in this process are actually the 49ers themselves. They're not turning on one another, I don't think.
No,
I don't think.
They're not.
But this whole thing has gone from, in only 5 practices, what should be an unbelievable buildup with a team that's got a loaded roster, ready to roar, one of the 5 or 6 favorites in the NFL, and everybody's screaming at each other about which quarterback they hate. Slander.
All that. It's, you need to.
Kind of exhausting.
Well,
and it's not just social. It's not just social media.
A lot of different corners and a lot of different pockets. And my advice to you is the same advice I give to all the fans, which is just compartmentalize it. Don't turn it off. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial. But just take everything that you hear from everybody with a grain of salt and put it all underneath the same umbrella and something that you just said during that very expansive monologue, Mark.
Thank you.
Is the 49ers are going to make the decision based on their expertise. So if I want Trey Lance to get a shot, maybe they don't want Trey Lance to get a shot. If I want Brandon Allen to be QB3, maybe they think that Brandon Allen is QB4. Maybe he ends up being QB2. They are experts in the field, and if you have faith in Kyle Shanahan, and I do, in terms of as an offensive play caller, as an offensive genius, as a guy who has taken this 49er organization and done a lot with it. You remember the days of Chip Kelly and Jim Tomsula? Those were not great days. Those were not the salad days. And he and John Lynch and the entire organization have put together a team that is good. This team is good 1 through 53, and they're going to figure out the quarterback pecking order. And I think I have faith in Kyle Shanahan to make the right decisions. And people want to be critical of Kyle, saying, well, he's been there 7 years and he's never been able to find his guy. He's never found a franchise quarterback. That's a fair criticism, but I also think you have to look at what Kyle Shanahan's done in terms of Super Bowl appearances, conference championship game appearances, winning seasons.
Yep.
And to me, that outweighs the fact that they still are looking for a quarterback that they want to give a second contract to.
Of course it outweighs it, but it's also
not even close.
Yeah, you can criticize Kyle Shanahan, anybody with the Niners organization. You can not like a play call. You could not like a pick that they made in the draft. That's all fair. The extension for me is some of the criticism to me means that you're actually saying that Kyle's motivations are in the wrong place. He's a wayward human being. That's actually what you're saying.
I don't get that one.
Here's why I'm saying that. If you think they're purposefully holding Trey down, how often do you hear, this is malpractice?
That's one of my favorites.
Okay.
That and slander is my other favorite.
Let's talk about malpractice.
Yeah.
This $6 billion organization put every resource it has into Trey Lance, and you are suggesting that they then decided to sit down together and go, all right, you know what would be funny? You know what would be funny? Let's Let's put all those resources into something that we just keep in the corner of the room and not use. Do you think that that's who they are? Do you think that they are the Eddie Haskell of the NFL?
That's two Leave It to Beaver references.
It's way too old. I'm so sorry. I apologize. But do you know what I mean? Like
radio malpractice.
It is.
What that is.
Do you think that they are that either moronic, idiotic, mean? I don't know what other word that you could use. Like that mischievous that you would just be like, let's trade 3 years worth of first rounders. Let's pick a guy and then mess with him. That's what it sounds like some of you think. And that's where I get knocked off kilter. If you just go, like you saw something, you expert, you went and saw some video on the internet and you went, oh my gosh, Trey Lance. Like, fine. Sure, you're welcome to that opinion. But some of you sound as if you think the 49ers are either mischievous, moronic, idiotic, or mean. And that's where you create a toxic environment for the team you supposedly root for.
Yeah, see, that toxic environment to me is something that does not permeate the building. So at that point, I'm unaffected by it because fans aren't going to not attend games. If you're a Niner fan and Trey Lance, let's say Trey Lance gets traded for a 4th-round pick, and his run with the 49ers ends before it really got started, if you are that cheesed off by the move that you're not going to be a fan anymore, I would argue that you're probably not a real fan anyway. This team was 13-4 last year and 10-7 the year before. So in the Trey Lance era, this team is 23-11 in the regular season without Trey Lance really materially being a part of it. So if they were 6-11 last year, I would be all with the fans in terms of the toxic environment because the team would be bad. If you're a bad team, then I think you can be more critical of what's going on.
Oh, no
doubt.
They
were 13-4 last year.
No doubt. I guess my question for you would be this, though. When you say that doesn't permeate the building, hold on, because Kyle Shanahan already looks totally annoyed by the quarterback questions. You and I went through Trey Lance sound on Friday afternoon that literally made both of us uncomfortable. There was uncomfortable laughter. There was just discomfort at the fact that Trey Lance kept saying the same thing. We felt sorry for the guy because every question leads to the same sort of answer, which is, I'm taking it one rep at a time. I don't know what else to tell you. Well, Trey, remember when you were a first-round draft pick and now nobody cares about you? Yeah, but Trey, remember when you used to get 25 reps and now you only get 7? Yeah, but Trey, did you notice that Sam's here now? And what about this Brandon now? Like every question is leading and we feel terrible for the guy. So how can we say that that's not permeating the building? Maybe not at a level that's killed their record yet.
Well, and that's
but it's definitely permeating the psyche of Trey Lance.
I don't know if it's affected his play, and so
it can't help.
Well,
it can't help.
I'm sure it can't. It can't help if it really hurts. If Trey Lance walks out of a press conference with his head down, thinking, "Oh, geez, that reporter was right. I was a first-round pick, and now I'm QB 2-, and man, I don't even know if I can make it out to practice tomorrow." If that is affecting him, then he is not.
Yeah, then he's not the guy. Then he's not
the guy.
Yeah,
because part of the gig and the reason why the NFL is so popular is that people care. Not only fantasy football, but people care about every single aspect of this team. And right now, this is something that Kyle Shanahan created. He created this problem by having 4 quarterbacks in. And one of the questions he was asked was, could you keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster? And he basically said, that'd be very difficult, but, and stuff. And we do want to have one on the practice squad and stuff. And, and all the rest of that. So he's the one who created that.
To a degree.
Well, by having 4 quarterbacks in.
I understand that.
And by having a highly drafted guy who you're not really utilizing the way that most number 3 overall picks are used.
See, that's one of those things. He created this. Okay, let's go play by play on this. Brock Purdy. Well, no one saw that coming.
Right.
So that's a pass. It's actually a wonderful thing.
It's a great thing,
You found potentially a good quarterback with the last pick in the draft. Okay. But you needed 3 quarterbacks at OTAs because Brock wasn't there. So you had to have 3 quarterbacks there. And then potentially some of them showed you some things that were interesting to you. So why would you not have them there now? And what if their feeling is deep down in their belly that Trey Lance is not the guy? They are disappointed in him. So did he create some of it? Did you pick someone that's not actually good?
Yeah.
Maybe. Sure, you have, in essence, quote, created some of this.
Yeah.
But much of it was completely either out of your control or unforeseen, in my opinion.
Well, I would look at it a different way and say you went out and brought in Sam Darnold on a guaranteed deal to a certain level, and you right away, when free agency opened, you couldn't wait to rush out and find another quarterback to come in, which signaled to me and you, and we've had this conversation, that maybe you're not thrilled with the development of Trey Lance. And you're right about the number of quarterbacks you need in OTAs. And, well, heck, Brandon Allen, he popped and he looked great, and so we don't want to let him go. And you also had brought in Brandon Allen, and he's making, I think, $200,000 guaranteed and up to $1 million or so. So Kyle did create this. Now, again, he didn't create this in a nefarious way, like, I'm going to show that Trey Lance. I'm going to bring in guys, and I'm going to show the fans that I'm going to have 4 quarterbacks. I'm going to have 8 quarterbacks in camp. I don't think that he did it with the motivation other than he wants to find good quarterbacks just in case a quarterback gets hurt, which has happened in 5 of his 6 years. He's had a quarterback get hurt. So knowing that, he wants a deep room. That was his motivation.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I don't think that's the entire motivation. You and I...
That's part of it. I think it's part of it.
Sure. I don't think, their simple point has been like, we see potentially 4 good players. Why would we get rid of them now? We don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fair. But then also, how did those players get there? Yes, there are some questions about whether or not the 49ers still believe in the future of Trey Lance. That's all. That's all fair.
And we got 30 days to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because in the next 30 days, if another quarterback around the league gets hurt, the Trey Lance trade talk will absolutely percolate to the top. But if no QB gets hurt, and at the end of these 30 days, and it's cut down day, I think it's August 29th, we're going to have an interesting conversation about what they exactly do at quarterback.
Yeah, because I don't think they're getting any of the 4th through to the practice squad. No. I don't think. George in San Jose, let's go to the phones. We're ready for you. Here we go at 888-957-9570. George in San Jose with Willie and Dibby. Hey, George, what are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing there? Thanks for taking that. This controversy is kind of like the British Open with its polite applause, and it's not even as raucous as the crowds at Bethpage Black or Shinnecock for the U.S. Open. And it's certainly not anywhere close to the toxic atmosphere of the Joe Montana and Steve Young controversy. I mean, that was so bad that you even had, and I'm totally Joe Montana.
All right, George, your phone is terrible. I really would love to hear what you have to say. Maybe give us a try back if you want. Comparing this to Montana and Young, I mean, in terms of the loudness of it, I don't know. I mean, those guys, you're talking about a very different situation. Joe Montana was already at that time considered like the greatest player to ever play in the NFL. He was like the most important player to ever play in the NFL at that point. And one of the greatest coaches of all time is essentially trying to replace him with someone who was an unknown, but also had a resume. Like, my concern here is...
Major pedigree, too.
Yeah, my concern is these are both 23-year-old players. They are going to be affected differently than Joe Montana and Steve Young. And, oh, by the way, this idea that, stuff like this not going to get into the locker room. Montana's still ticked. It's 2023. What do we got here? 50 years later almost? 40 years later. He's still mad. Yeah, this stuff can get to the locker room. Yes. Yes, it can.
Well, this was a different situation, obviously.
Of course.
Because Steve Young was the number 1 pick in the supplemental draft, and he already had a successful career, and then he comes in, and he was pushing Joe, and it was 1991, after Montana got hurt in 1990, where Young got his chance, and that's when the controversy kind of spilled from there. So only about 33 years. But yes, Mark.
Okay.
And the principals involved at that point, they were not these kids. And I think that is an interesting distinction that you draw because Steve Young was, I think, 27 when he came over to the team. And by the time he had gotten the gig, he was darn near 30. So they both were well-established pro quarterbacks. And we're dealing with a guy in his second year and a guy in his third year, both 23 years of age, where, they're more susceptible, I think, to the noise and the chatter.
Well, I mean, how many times have you heard this? Boy, if I were Trey, I'd want out of here.
Yeah, many times.
Well, then we can't say that this isn't permeating the room. If you feel like Trey would want out, and I know there's a little bit of a difference to the opinion, what some people are saying by that is they feel like a lack of support from the 49er organization. But part of it is the noise. It's the noise. And acting like Brock Purdy wouldn't be affected by this stuff, we don't know what would affect Brock Purdy because he has, outside of his arm in Philly, he essentially has faced no adversity.
Yeah.
There's been no negativity. What could anyone say? Oh, damn, he didn't win by enough last week? He won all the games. There's nothing to be said, and you never know how someone's going to react when they start getting hit by the opinions for the first time in their career. Look at Dame Lillard in the NBA. This guy spent 11 years where it was just like, oh, man, Dame.
Dame Dollar.
We wish we could have Dame. And he's just in there in Portland, and it's cute and unassuming and not threatening.
Yeah.
And you could go to the playoffs sometimes, and sometimes you don't, and you're a great player, and everyone's like he's loyal, and we love Dame. Everybody loves Dame. And then, bam, one move about a month and a half ago. I want to be traded, and I want to be traded to that team. And here came all this negativity, and he did not like it. He was on Twitter, and his agent is out and about, and now memos are being sent he does not like this. And it occurred to me, this is the first time anybody's gotten mad at you in the public space, Dame.
For sure.
So, again, it's halftime. It's 14-3 Steelers. Purdy has fumbled once and thrown one pick. Where are we at? How are we doing? Everybody's just going to handle that calmly? I would argue they won't.
Of course not. And it will be even before then. If it's a preseason game and he looks shaky. Remember Jimmy Garoppolo in a practice in Denver?
Yes.
And he threw, 5 or 6 interceptions reportedly?
Consecutive plays.
Right. And so, and we still, the fact that I know it and I can't let it go, that dogged Jimmy, and that was a joint practice in Denver. So if Brock has a rough preseason game and Trey looks good in that same preseason game, the chatter's going to be
Here we go.
The chatter's going to be rolling. And so Brock Purdy's got to have the ability to block all of that out. And I think this is where Kyle Shanahan can do a great job of, and he already has. Brock's the guy. Brock, when he's on the field, he gets all the reps with the ones. You're my one until you really struggle. Yeah.
Right. It's still the NFL, and if you don't play well, someone else will.
Yeah.
That's how it works. David in the 408. Hey, David, Willard and Dibs, how are you doing? What are you doing?
Hey, what up, fellas? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I want to let all the Trey Lance fans know, just to give it up, it's pretty obvious based off what's happening. And mind you, I'm a Trey Lance supporter. I like the kid, but I don't see that he's in the future plans. And I think the fact that we're focusing on what's happening in practice in terms of the physical aspects. We're not talking about what's happening in the QB room. And there has to be something going on in that QB room that's making them decide who they're going to give the snaps to. And, practice is more than just one player, right? So they need to find a guy that can build a rapport with the wide receivers. And if they know that Trey isn't that guy, then he's really the fourth quarterback. And that's why they got Brandon Allen in there. They're going to roll with 3 quarterbacks, but I don't think Trey is in the future plan.
Yeah, David, what would be super fascinating, and I think would end all of this, is a quote from the 49ers that we will never get, which is, would you just sit down and tell us exactly what you've seen both on the field and off, in games and in practice and in film room and in the locker room? Would you just sit down and tell us everything that you know about all of these players and what you actually think when you come to your decisions. Go ahead, we'll wait.
Yeah, well, they're going to do it with their actions. And that's why, and it's hard for us because we want everything immediately now in this day and age. We want the answers. We want the depth chart. We want the clarity. You're going to have to wait until probably August 29th and cut down day. And at that point, you're going to know how they feel about each of these four guys.